Hey, everybody, welcome to week 153. The end of the quarter is here. Hard to believe it. I'm ready for spring, though. So, yeah, we're going to be talking a little bit more about what's going on in this whole banking world and the whole North Carolina PTE. Instead of having Adam's explainer video, we get to have Adam live do the explainer. So that'll be good. For anybody that doesn't know what PTE is in North Carolina and what the issue is, you soon will. So if you have questions, hit us up with the Q&A. It doesn't have to be thematically about the banks. It doesn't have to be about PTE. It can be about anything you want it to be, especially if it has to do with taxes, growing your business, and legal stuff. So anyway, and hit us up on the chat if you want to harass us. You can do that too. Papa Joe will probably be popping on and we'll hear something from him. So anyway, Jack, I thought, oh, you changed your background on us. Yeah, you did have First Republic back there, but
yeah,
you're
that
back
was so
in your
last week.
office.
I am back in my office. Yeah, it was a quick transporter trip. So and I did, as I was coming in hot, I mentioned that I have some slides to show just to give a little bit of background on the First Citizens Silicon Valley Bank, which I have to remind myself to say Silicon versus Silicone. That's
yeah.
A
lot of people say that.
Yes.
For some reason.
Yeah, and I just
funny.
like, when I hear that, I'm like, I get it. I know. I'm not going to correct you. You can figure it out and have your family members tell you you're saying it incorrectly. So there is, let me share my screen here. And okay, can you guys see that? All right, so this is just to give a point of reference is what has sort of happened with, let's see if I can zoom this in. Oh, look at that. Okay, so there are a lot of smaller acquisitions in this, but this is the main blueprint or historical graphic of how Bank of America came into existence as it is today. And I'm very proud, I did not know this, but I feel I've been banking with this small bank that merged into Nations Bank in, I think, 1990-ish or so. And so I didn't know that Bank of Italy and Bank of America merged to create a new Bank of America. So I knew there was a reason why I stuck around with B of A for so long, is because they have Italian roots. You know, it's not all Americans. So there you go. And then you see what has happened over the course of time. Nations Bank became Bank of America, but then there was Merrill Lynch and Countrywide Financial that were part of that merger. I also found, oh, there's the First Republic Bank one. Oh, wait a minute. Going in the wrong direction. All right. So just try to get an idea of, and maybe this next one actually. All right. So you have what you see as standalone as between First Citizens Bank and SVB standalone. And then you see what the combined assets, loans and leases and deposits are. You see the geographic distribution, obviously, with First Citizens being focused in our geography, meaning North and South Carolina. I know we have some guests from other parts of the country, and in fact, in Hawaii occasionally. So, and then, you know, people are like, well, why would they do this? Well, look, some people have said, wow, First Citizens has won the lottery. And if you look at it, you know, the step that they took in increasing their footprint, increasing their assets, all those things. So here is essentially a graphic of that. And then going in the wrong direction. Okay. And this is kind of the next level of analysis, which is showing the configuration of those assets that First Citizens holds, that SVB holds, and then they put it as pro forma, which is, I mean, they're still to be determined. They're working through all of that, but this is what is anticipated to be what the configuration snapshot of the combined bank looks like once that happens. So Just again, I'm about, as all of you know, about numbers and about facts and statistics and throwing stuff out there. So I just thought that this might help bring some more knowledge into what is a little bit nebulous, kind of, even if you listen to it and kind of follow it, but to see a little bit more detail without going too far deep into it. So there is your mergers and acquisitions education for the day.
Ooh, that's pretty good, man. So, do you remember the name of the Italian CEO that started Bank of America from the Bank of Italy? Do you remember his name?
I don't, but I'd be willing to give out a Starbucks card if anyone knows that in the next 10 seconds without cheating.
Well, I do,
You
but
don't get to play.
I know. So this, you can't, it's hard to see this, but this guy right here, that's the guy. AP Giannini, and that's in the top of that Bank of America Tower boardroom. And this is the view from that. It's a pretty impressive place. I conducted a meeting there after we bought Bank of America, or the merger of equals, which was not. It was an acquisition. But anyway, that was a pretty experience. I wish I had my camera phone on this, instead of this, disposable one that I bought across the street at the CVS, because I thought, we're not in Kansas anymore. What am I doing in a place like this? So anyway, that was kind of funny.
Wow. I was not expecting that. That is a bonus material for
There you go.
this segment, right? Okay.
It's about banks. Hey, before we move off of banks, one thing that I thought was really interesting, I had lunch with Ted Wolf yesterday, the president of Town Bank. And, last week, Derek Painter talked about that there are FDIC insured products that go beyond just the $250,000 current cap. And we did talk about the whole FDIC thing. What does he think, et cetera? And I got his opinion, not Town Bank's opinion on that. But it was interesting because it is a conundrum. What are you going to do with that? But one of the things that he said was that, yes, they do have these FDIC products that have less competitive rates that go across so that you can have all your deposits. So in case, of BGW, where we've got all of our payroll that sweeps into an account, well, it's more than the $250,000 limit right now. I said, well, yeah, we heard that. And he said, but here's what's interesting. We have preferential pricing, that it is competitive. Like he said, we've priced it so that we're just barely breaking even on it, because he said everybody's wanting deposits. So if that is of interest to people, you can talk with your bank, or you can talk with Town Bank, it doesn't matter, but you can ask them about how aggressive they can get on that pricing if you want that FDIC insurance. The reality is if they do FDIC insurance for all deposits that they have given, verbal about to calm and tamp down the fears, there's going to be a price that comes with. I mean, somebody's going to have to pay, and it's going to come out of depositors, and you'll see especially lower depositors that get hit with much higher monthly fees. That was his take, that would probably happen, but there needs to be some addressing of that issue. So, and the reason we're talking about that is just because in the last week, I thought, well, it's probably tamped down, but we've still heard a fair amount of chatter. Hey, is my bank safe, et cetera. So we can talk a little bit more about that. But Adam, talk about what's happening with North Carolina pass-through entity tax, PTE.
Yeah, we'll do. But I can't help myself but to comment on the bank thing. so bear with me.
Okay. Rant
yeah.
coming.
Well, I mean, it's more like one of those head scratchers. I mean, Jack mentioned the whole, hey, it looks like they won the lottery on the footprint standpoint. At the same time, I checked the attendee list. I don't think we have anybody from First Citizens on the line. Even if they were, they probably would side eye me and then agree with me. In my experience, there's kind of like, hey, who's the conservative bank in town? And everybody BB&T, And then there was First Citizens, which was like a whole nother category of conservative. And it just, to buy a bank that specialized in startups, and private equity on the West Coast, I'm just like, I mean, Gary, you went through your own crap, at Nations Bank and Bank of America from a cultural integration standpoint.
Woo.
But I kind of look at it like, holy moly, how's that going to work? So I actually had the opportunity to speak with a client the other day that banked with SVB that was like, oh man, it was very scary, there that, kind of the message boards that he's on around like First Citizen, because nobody on the West Coast knows who the hell these guys are. So like, I don't see how it's going to work, so we're just joking about it, is like how is this possibly going to work, for them? So I don't know. This seems like, I don't see how it's going to work out real well.
So
anyway,
I want to comment on that before we
Yeah.
move to North Carolina PTE, because I can guarantee you, or as Al Sale at at First Union would say, I guarantee you. That's what he would do. I love that, Al Sale. I guarantee you. And boy, you knew that he was serious when he said that. He lowers his glasses. But I guarantee you that they did not do a cultural compatibility assessment before they did that. I guarantee you, they did not do that.
Yeah,
No way.
There's just no way. Yeah.
And I think you're right. Holy moly, when you think, oh, well, hey, the numbers will work and all that, ask Daimler Chrysler how that went for them.
Yeah. That's a real wild. I mean, if you want to know how it goes blending East Coast and West Coast cultures, keeping in mind that I, spent a good deal of my life in Arizona. So many people think of me as a West Coast person who now lives on the East Coast. Just ask the people that were, legacy Wachovia, how it's gone with Wells. And they'd say, yeah, it freaking sucks. Dealing with the people from California. I mean, Bank of America was no different, them dealing with the people from San Francisco. From Bank of America. Right. So anyway, so moving on to the North Carolina pass-through entity tax, so I promised Gary that I wouldn't rant too much on this one. So let me start the rant, Gary. You need to get like a stopwatch, that actually times.
All right, I'll time you.
Yeah. So, let's just start with, well, how did this all kind of come about? So, if you guys will recall from previous rants, when Republican administrations offer up tax cuts, that's, as a taxpayer, that's great. I love that. Yay, my taxes went down. They're also not idiots, and there are, some people within the Republican Party who actually are still fiscally conservative. And, they're like, okay, I kind of believe into the economic argument that, sure, there'll probably be some economic growth, but at the end of the day, this tax cut needs to pay for itself, and at some level that isn't all just based on there's going to be economic growth. So part of what they did with the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, if you recall, in terms of the, tax cuts, which is really a business and business owner tax cut at the end of the day, that's really what it was. Well, part of what they also did is they got rid of the itemized deduction that you used to be able to take for paying state taxes. So, what used to happen on Jack's tax return, since he makes all that money as a partner at Shoemaker, you can't see this because I'm talking, but he's nodding his head. Yeah. Yeah. Our hourly rate does not equate to what we put in our pocket. And sometimes it's not even loosely associated. But anyway, you paid your state taxes, and at least that got removed from arriving at your taxable income for the purposes of calculating your federal tax rate. Well, they took that away when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act happened, such to the point where, for a lot of people, I got a tax cut on the rate, but because you took away a deduction, I ended up actually owing more money. That actually happened to some people. Same thing applied to property taxes. So because they just phased out after 10 grand. So that sucked, frankly. I'm kind of like, where's Grover Norquist when we need him, in terms of as much of a buffoon as we may have all thought that he was, at least, he was very consistent in his views on tax policy, which is taking away deduction is just a tax increase disguised under a different name. So anywho, flash forward, there's been a lot of talk about, should we bring that back or not? And you get people on, again, this is where I find the hypocrisy funny. So the rant's still going, Gary's timer's still on. It's like, well, we don't want to give that deduction back because it would benefit the people in California, New York, and New Jersey that are all Democrats that have a high tax rate. We don't want to give them any benefit. I mean, at the end of the day, the difference between California and North Carolina is 3% of a rate difference. Yeah, it sucks to be in California, but it is only a 3% rate difference. So by the way, that's sort of like, by keeping this deduction out of the system, that's sort of like me taking poison and hoping that Gary will die.
Don't do it.
Yeah, you sticking it to the Californians is costing you too. In other words, unless you're living in Texas, Tennessee, or Washington, you're paying state income tax, or Florida, you're paying state income taxes. And last time I checked, there's a lot of red states that are out there, outside of those jurisdictions. So we're all kind of getting screwed by this. Well, what some state legislatures have started to do, and this really applied to out-of-state, this has been in place for out-of-state shareholders of companies for a long time. I mean, used to be if Jack lived in South Carolina and he was a shareholder in a North Carolina company, he had the option of saying, I'll go and pay tax on my own, don't worry about it. And then you know what Jack would do? I'm not gonna do that. So there was just a massive compliance problem, that existed. So the states kind of caught wind of that and said, all right, in order to encourage compliance, we're going to mandate that you need to pay the taxes on behalf of out-of-state shareholders as a company. Well, then they took it a step further and said, well, why don't we let people pay all the taxes on behalf of the shareholders for the companies, and allow a tax deduction for that? It's not like they passed a law saying, hey, by the way, we're going to change federal tax code to allow for the payment of income taxes on behalf of personal shareholders. Can we change the federal tax code to make? No, it's actually just state taxes are deductible in a company for the purposes of arriving at federal taxable income. So it's just like the state governments actually exploited a nice little loophole that exists, such that now, Jack, with all that big money he's making at Shoemaker, if Shoemaker opts into paying the taxes that normally would have been incurred on Jack's behalf, Shoemaker will get a deduction. So from Jack's standpoint, that's great because now he's getting the equivalent of getting tax deduction. So where this has been real confusing for people in North Carolina is that, in classic North Carolina to quote the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce executive director, Bill Russell, who good friend, known him forever. And when I've always made fun of the North Carolina General Assembly, which I find opportunity to do quite often, about, hey, you know, we're legislating this and legislating that and legislating this and legislating. I'm like, can't they just kind of fix the tax system first and then focus on everything else? It's like, well, they can walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. Evidently not. You know, clearly they cannot. So what they did is they said companies can now pay taxes on behalf of their shareholders or partners. That's fabulous news. I love it. And then they never issued any guidance on how that was actually going to happen. So what Jack did is Jack continued to pay his estimated taxes because we told him to as a CPA, because there's no guidance on what the heck to actually do. We thought the logical thing would actually occur, which is in other state jurisdictions, I have the opportunity to apply Jack's estimated tax payments to that corporate tax bill in the first year so that Jack's not double paying his taxes. Do you think North Carolina did that? No, they did not. You know, instead, Jack paid his estimated tax payments. Then the company had to pay him again in order to get the deduction. And now Jack has to apply for a refund. Even better is that if Jack held his interest in a partnership, but Gary held his interest in Shumaker individually, all of Shumaker is excluded from electing PTE at this point. Another legislative fix that needs to be put in place. So my point in saying all that is that the pass-through entity tax is a great benefit. It allows companies to pay taxes on behalf of their shareholders and partners. What ends up happening is that if Gary made $100,000, you know, taxable at the federal level and North Carolina level, what his tax return is now going to show is that he made $100,000 federally. In North Carolina, he made $0 because the North Carolina income tax is excluded because the tax has already been paid by the company. So it's awesome, you know, awesome benefit. However, the implementation by the North Carolina General Assembly and the North Carolina Department of Revenue has been freaking terrible in terms of how they actually implemented this relative to how other states have gotten it done. Well, that wasn't terrible. I was only like 15-minute rant, Gary.
Well, no, it's actually pretty good. But what do you think is literally going to I mean, what do you think is going to happen from it? How long is it going to take?
I think that, so good question. I think that they're going to probably have a fix. I mean, the speculation there's going to be a fix in place. But in terms of when, you know, it's funny if you kind of follow what happened with PPP, because it's behaving very, very similar to PPP. Oh yeah, no, we know we need to fix this. We know we need to fix this. No need to fix this. Didn't get it fixed on time. All these people paid their North Carolina taxes, had to wait for a freaking refund again. If I had to guess, probably going to happen sometime over the summer. Like there'll be a fix to all this. So it's like you're just stuck in this crappy ass situation until the summer. It's pretty funny. I was talking to former partner, brother-in-law the other day, who, you know, is a CPA, but now owns a M&A firm, just about this issue. And he said, well, have you emailed, because we know a lot of the same legislators. He's like, well, have you emailed John Bradford, who's a representative for our district? And I was like, nah, I haven't yet. He's like, well, you know, just wait until he has to pay it twice. Then he'll get pissed off enough that he actually raise the issue. So his speculation was that the legislators didn't really actually understand, just like with PPP, the legislators didn't really understand what they'd done negatively. But once they found out what they'd done negatively to themselves, suddenly a lot of movement took place.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and if you remember, I think we were the second to last state to get PPP fixed on the state level and get resolution. I think we were the second to last.
Yeah, that's right. It was, we were pretty ridiculous.
So, you know, if
rant
somebody,
on again for a state that's supposedly pro business. Come on,
well, yeah,
guys, be better.
it would be helpful if we had more people that were in the legislature that had experienced running and owning a business. That would change a lot. But so anyway, that's my part of the rant. So if somebody has not already filed their taxes, do you recommend, hopefully you've filed an extension, just waiting so that you don't have to do an amendment?
Then you're kind of stuck with paying the taxes anyway. So what we've been, I mean, so the technically correct answer is, you know, with the if you own a partnership that has a partner as a partner, and technically you're not allowed to opt into PTE, our advice has been, you know, technically you're supposed to pay the taxes individually. You could do that and then pay it once there's guidance out and then get a refund later on. But at the same time, we're pretty confident that if you just don't pay the taxes, North Carolina is going to issue some kind of penalty waiver. You know, that at least that's what we're optimistic on, you know, just to deal with it then. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's a lot like PPP. It's like technically the correct answer is, you know, you're supposed to pay the taxes, even though we're quite confident you're going to get a refund. At the same time, you know what phone calls I've really not enjoyed, Gary? I still haven't gone there. I mean, I said that flippantly, but it's like, we got to, you know, when am I going to get my refund? I don't know, when the state gets off their ass and sends it to you. So it's like, I don't know. I'd rather keep my money. Frankly, this is the I can't get disbarred for giving advice like Jack can't. Advice like, I'd rather keep my money and just deal with any penalties and interest that comes out of it versus giving it to someone who is going to give it back to me on their own time, you know, which is slow.
So one thing that I will say, this is my last year as a W-2 because I've bought in as a partner at BGW. So the estimated taxes are coming this next month. But so BGW did my taxes for me. And I got a refund. You know, I paid extra. I got my refund back in 2.3 weeks from the time that it was e-filed. North Carolina and federal. Federal was a day before North Carolina. So not too bad for what it's worth.
Cool. But that's what I know about PTE, buddy. A lot of other states have it too, but you know, it's neat to see finally North Carolina.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, I'm surprised we have such a silent gallery out there. And I'm looking at the attendee list here, and it's a pretty good list of people. What questions do you guys have? So I don't see Papa Joe on here. That's why we haven't been harassed on the chat. And I'm not seeing Robert Mayetta. So that's why you didn't have to give away your Starbucks gift card, Jack, because he would have known it. So, and I did get a request from a business owner that loves these things and said, hey, I can't attend, but I'm really interested. So yes, it'll be up on the BGW CPA YouTube channel later on this afternoon. Any thoughts or any things that are on your minds? Bruce, you usually weigh in. Jim, would love to hear from you. Christy, you're always on here. It's great. Thank you guys for this is still pretty nice crew today, 25 people on, but any questions you guys have?
Yeah, in the intervening period, I mean, you know, we still have had a lot of people that have been scared about, hey, what's going to happen with my bank? And I think, you know, our own take on it is, will there be any complete bank failures like there were Lehman Brothers, you know, from 2008? You know, it doesn't seem like it, even though some banks are getting hammered right now in terms of their market cap. another term for share price. All that said, we've been saying for a while that banks, it's hard to say, hey, is credit tightened up or not? That's a little harder to say. But at the same time, I think you can count on, more questions, a little bit more conservatism going forward out of your lending institutions. So it's just a reiteration of like, and we've covered this in other calls, make sure you got your crap together, in terms of like, the old adage of, well, if I needed the money, then what do I need the bank for? Or if I didn't need the money, what do I need the bank for? I mean, there's a lot that's true, but at the same time, you really need to be pushing for not being the guy that requires a letter in the file explaining something. So if your renewal's coming up or whatever, or you're trying to get more credit, it's like, hey, get yourself looking pretty darn healthy, because I think we probably are facing an era of, it's just gonna tighten up. It's like this is just additive to the higher interest rate environment / recession scare. It's like, well, that's kind of the last crap we needed, piled into the mix.
So Bruce, I knew we could count on you. I just had to nudge you a little bit. Thank you. You always have good questions. So here's the question. With this turmoil in the banking industry, do you see any trends regarding impact on credit union deposits?
It's a good question. I think, from that perspective, you kind of have this, oh my God, what's going on, within banking, in general. And credit unions operate under a different regulatory environment than regular banks, so that which has its, kind of pros and cons associated with it. So I think I don't think so, Bruce, in terms, like, I think there might be like a temporary flight, but I don't think so. In terms of like seeing any sort of long-term movement one way or the other, because I mean, at the end of the day, if you kind of look at like, okay, well, if you look at all the cash, on company balance sheets and individual balance sheets, across the US, or cash-like assets, like the vast majority of cash or cash-like assets is uninsured because it's sitting in the stock market. Or it's sitting in mutual funds, or it's sitting in people's 401k plans, or it's sitting in money market accounts. I mean, all uninsured, types of things. So I feel like this is kind of like one of those extremely temporary crisis moments that people will forget about. And it's not so much forget about, but it's more like, okay, well, that sucked, but that was a very isolated, and like, I truly believe this is very isolated in terms of what happened.
And I
So
would say
Mike,
that,
go ahead.
yeah. So my supplemental comment to that is that I think that, and this is a very general statement, that credit unions, in addition to being under a slightly different regulatory scheme, tend to be more conservative, I think, as far as what they do with their money, your money essentially that you've put into there. And credit unions tend to be more local, or maybe state-based. Of course, there are credit unions that go across the country, or military type credit unions, those kind of things, or national companies. But I think I think more credit unions more like community banks in a sense as to what they're going to be doing with their deposits and other assets. So presumably, safer, but I don't want to then imply that if you have your money at B of A or anywhere else that it's unsafe. But I agree with Adam's comment that a lot of our wealth generally speaking, in America is uninsured because it is in vehicles that are not insured. And then you also have the limits with the FDIC as far as, what is insured per taxpayer as well. So, and I know that people on this call are in that income range and asset range and on your balance sheet, and you probably bank with different banks for that reason, which is to have the assets protected in different ways.
So Bruce, to follow up, he says, I suspect it's too early to tell, and any impact may just be minimal. Just another option for someone in a panic. So that's probably right. Did get a question from Mike. So when you sell your business and such sale would normally incur North Carolina state capital gains / income tax for any revenues earned in North Carolina, how does this legislation, that whole PTE thing, affect the pass-through capital gains liability from the sale?
That actually isn't part of this. This really equates to just income taxes generated by ordinary income. If you sell the company, I mean, that's still going to occur at the personal level. Fun side fact though, if you're thinking about changing your residency to a no tax jurisdiction prior to selling your company, all of the state income tax would be avoidable. So we have had a few clients that said, it'd be a great time to go buy a condo in Florida, and move my personal residency there prior to selling their company. It's been a great, that in and of itself, the tax savings, depending on the size of the transaction, it could end up paying for the condo.
There you go. I do have something for everybody, because this is something that Derek referenced last week. So I'm going to share this with you guys. This is really, hey, where's my money? Can you guys see this?
It's a little skittery, but yeah. I can't hear it either, but I can see it.
Oh, you can't hear it?
Yeah.
Okay. So Jimmy Stewart's, they're saying, where's my money? Well, it's with Joe. You're lending it so he can go build something. It's like that. That's the same thing. But it's interesting. I had a conversation with a business owner 2 nights ago, part of a mastermind group that I'm in, and she banks at a couple different banks and has a very big bank, and then also a regional bank, and then also a private bank. And the big bank, she's been known to move 50 to 100 grand, take it out and move it out at a time pretty easily. And so she went to the big bank and said, I want to withdraw $20,000. And they said, come back and check with us next week. And she said, really? I've done 50 and hundreds at a time. You're telling me that you don't have the money? And nope. And she did a similar thing with her regional bank. And it wasn't a week later, but it was like, oh, we'll have the money in 3 days, which did not invoke a lot of calmness with her. And she's a little high strung anyway at times. So I just thought that was interesting. And she was just really frustrated and also concerned. And I said, well, it still comes down to the Jimmy Stewart scene that I was trying to play for you guys. Bank runs, if everybody's panicking, oh, I got to have my money. So what are you going to do with it? Put it in your mattress. You're going to bury it in the can in the backyard. You're going to put it in your little gun safe. What are you going to do? I don't know. It's not going to grow any interest, that's for sure, at that time.
There's a human psychology behind that too, which is, a cooling off period. Sleep on it and see if you really need that, or if someone just kind of was buzzing in your ear that day to create a panic, or you saw something on Fox News or CNBC that got you in a panic. And so, it's a built-in cooling off period essentially for people that are panicked and want to get their money out, to create or to slow down runs, or create calmness, and to avoid runs on the banks.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, a week delay did not invoke calmness on her part. So anyway, so Bruce has this question. I was late getting on the call because I was meeting with my ADT rep on enhancement to our home security system for my home office. Would a portion of this capital cost, minimal ongoing maintenance fees, be allowable as a business expense? Oh, that's a good question.
I was muted. Sorry about that, Gary.
Yeah.
So I mean, as with anything home office related, you just take a proportion of what the home office usage is relative to the total square footage of the house. And that's the deductible portion. Assuming that it's not dedicated, it's covering the whole house.
All right. Well, there you go. That's why we're here. That's a good one. And if you are, we just talked about this morning on another meeting that I was on, but if you are a BGW client, go to the Vault and the Tax Academy. There are some amazing videos, especially for owner fringe benefits, that you want to see. So speaking of want to see, if anybody's on Instagram, you want to see Adam Boatsman's post from yesterday, because he's wearing a Superman costume. And it is really good.
I thought I was dreaming that. And then I was like, because I did see it as a glimpse, and I was like, did I really just see that? Okay.
You really saw it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got a few comments on that from people that I know. So what I found funny was actually that, good family friend. Our kids have known each other, since my daughter was a year old. Now my daughter's 19, to put that in context. And she now goes to University of Tennessee and is a business major. And she saw it and commented on it. So that was so yay, reach the intended audience, students, to show that we're fun and irreverent. On the flip side, what I have been saying a lot of, I've received other posts. Yeah, this is actually what I've been reduced to. Like you guys are all talking about so hard to find people. So far, yeah, are you dressing up in Superman freaking unitards? Because that's what we're having to do at BGW.
Yeah.
How about you, Jack? Fine lawyer, is he dressing up in a unitard? Like, I don't want to hear about your labor shortage until you want to dress up in a unitard.
I haven't gotten that frustrated yet, but I might at some point.
Yeah, tell Phil, remind Phil Chubb, he picked a good time to retire. Didn't have to pull out the unitard.
It would have to get to a level, as my wife says, that she has to raise and elevate her voice to get people's attention to certain things after like the fourth or fifth time. So that would be elevating my voice to the next level, because people really don't want to see that.
Yeah, no, that's not good. Hey, this is a completely different tangent, but it has to do with stuff impacting the marketplace and businesses. So has anybody out there, and I didn't put a poll together because I just thought about this from a conversation with another business owner that was actually, we interviewed him for the Anything But Typical podcast, and his episode will be late April, early May. But a guy named Chris Torquia, and he runs a company called Vigilante, and half of his company does development and like video game type applications for the Department of Defense. And then the other side is for an entertainment arm. And it's a pretty big company. I had no idea that that was here in Charlotte. But we started talking about Chat GPT, GPT-4, and its applicability in business. And he's got the plus version or whatever, because they, they're developers and all that kind of stuff. And he said it's pretty crazy. The things that, like, he's got it doing all of his LinkedIn posts and all that kind of stuff. He's fed in prior posts, so it's kind of learned his style, and he just does that. He showed me a brochure that he put in, and it was for a thing that they're doing for a Department of Defense unit, and fed it in and showed me what the brochure looks like. And I'm like, really? That's pretty amazing. And I thought, that might be an interesting thing to do, is to have a Chat GPT and business. Like, what can you do with that? What areas could you leverage that technology? And we also saw in this last week that, Musk and some of those guys are hitting the brakes on this advanced AI stuff, because they're afraid that, we may have the Terminator thing coming up here on us, which is kind of frightening. So anyway, I mean, Arnold would probably get a lot more royalties if it did, but, it's frightening for the rest of us. So just a thought, that might be an interesting topic for a future discussion.
Sure.
Jack, have you tried anything with Chat GPT?
What's interesting is it was 2 nights ago, I was reading stuff about it, and I'm like, I don't know what this stuff is. And so I went and researched it. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So basically, Erica for Bank of America, and those kind of things relatedly. And then I also heard this morning, Elon Musk is saying, hey, we're going too far too fast with AI. And then I start thinking about, and this will date me, think about Battlestar Galactica, think about the Terminator, think about,
Right.
what was that, Will Smith, iRobot, or is it iRobot? That's a vacuum, isn't it? Maybe it is iRobot, but those kind of things. So I don't think you want that.
So everybody knows that I have been trying Chat GPT so I can keep up with Jack.
Wow.
Tell me a good dad joke. Sure.
Is that a phonetic spelling for your name also?
Yeah. No, that's actually double funny, on so many levels. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Terminator and all that, okay. Eagle Eye. I mean, there's all these movies about we build the machines and they come and they destroy us, and because we're arrogant about it. And so, but I also know that we are very, very dependent upon all of that without realizing it. So anytime you talk into your phone, anytime you ask for directions, anytime the computer is figuring out, hey, here's a better route, kind of thing. So, I mean, all those things are part of artificial intelligence, whether they are verbalized and explicitly related to you, or if it's going on in the background, kind of thing, as far as them interpreting algorithms for Spotify. It's like, okay, I enjoy my daily mix 1, 2, and 3. And it's because it's, kind of listening to what I'm listening to and taking note of the things that I skip over, songs that they pick, and then it's readjusting. All of that is part of this regime of artificial intelligence.
So here's a trivia question for you. What state did one of the developers for Alexa reside in? Does anybody know that? I'll give you a hint. North Carolina.
I was going to guess Virginia, like maybe it was short for Alexandria or something.
Yeah, no, it was that technology. John Espy was telling me about that. John was the CEO of Level here in town. And he was telling, because he knows that person. Yap. Jim Marascio. Hey, do you know? Yeah, I think that's what it was. It was Yap. Jim Marascio, another software guy here in Charlotte. There you go. Thank you, Jim. I figured you'd want to weigh in on that one. Good to see you.
Do I owe him a
Well,
certificate now? I think I
yeah,
might.
I think you should. I think Jim Marascio, I think that he deserves a Starbucks thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So funny other trivia fact, Gary, is that I think everybody that knows me knows that I am a massive Star Trek fan.
Oh yeah.
And, the original series, widely held as one of the most optimistic, hey, good, positive, we're going to have a great future oriented, in the 23rd century, everything's going to be great. We're all going to get along. No need for money, no hunger, poverty, blah, blah, blah. Right. Yet, what is the one thing that Gene Roddenberry wrote an episode about that involved AI and it all turned out bad? It was called The Ultimate Computer, in which case AI was temporarily given control of the Starship Enterprise as a test and proceeded to destroy 3 other Constitution-class ships before figuring out how to disconnect it. So if anybody can give the name of the computer, Jack will give a Starbucks gift card.
Well, it wasn't Hal. That's
Same difference, right? This was pre-HAL, by the way.
It was pre-HAL.
It was the M5 computer.
I'm embarrassed I didn't remember that.
Yeah, I'm really embarrassed that I actually know that.
Yeah,
I was going to guess
feel young.
Yeah,
I was going to guess V'ger.
That's a long way of saying that arguably the most optimistic science fiction oriented series ever written. Even it thought, AI equals bad. bad for humans.
I was going to
So
say
Jim
V'ger, which
Marascio-
is one of the biggest reveals, I think, of sci-fi history, I thought, at the time, that it was the Voyager satellite.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yep.
So there's my nerdy contribution to the conversation. All right.
Yep. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
So Jim Marascio, he earned that Starbucks card because he posted a link about voice recognition, that startup. I put it in the chat for everybody. So if that's of interest to you, snag it from the chat right now before we sign off in a bit. What was the other thing that I had on my mind that I thought was, kind of related, but kind of not. We just finished the series last night on Netflix called
Stranger Things.
No. It's something. It's about an FBI White House dual agent that's taking calls, and something agent. Dang it, what is the name of it? Holy moly, was that good. It's like, what is the name of it? This is really bad. Look up. It's like phone. No. I don't remember what it is. I'll have to find it out. But it's only a 10-episode series, but it's about an FBI agent that has a dual role, is in the basement of the White House secret room, and his whole
Darla
job,
guessed in the chat, but I don't know if she's being facetious or
night agent.
okay.
That's it. It's night agent. That's right. Yeah,
Well,
because
Darla
I
had it
told Tanya,
mostly
I told
right.
our leadership team about it on Monday. And I think she said Earl gave it 2 thumbs up, right, Tanya? Yes. Yeah, night agent. That's it. Man, that's a good one. And it's not really AI, but it's got some ends justify the means intrigue of Washington. And It's well done. So there you go. That's your free Gary's Rotten Tomatoes review. See it. So, all right. Any other questions before we sign off today? Pretty good discussion. Hopefully you guys got some stuff that you could apply. And if you have any additional thoughts on, hey, these are the things that are heating up that are really on our mind, just send me an email and I'll make sure that we tee that up. GFREY@trustbgw.com, GFREY@trustbgw.com. That'd be great. Anybody that came on late, if you were installing security systems and you missed the front of the end of this thing, we'll put it up on the BGW CPA YouTube channel later on this afternoon.
So Gary, before we go, since I'm not gonna, we already had the dad joke section of the show.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna install a dumb crook news section for today.
Oh,
it's actually good advice. It's a good advice. So if you're ever gonna, commit a crime or rob a bank, it's really important that if you're using an EV, that you charge it first. So apparently, in Gwinnett County, Georgia, 2 would-be criminal masterminds robbed the gaming systems place. And responding officers were told that they fled in a Tesla, put out a description to fellow cops, and wouldn't you know it, the devious twosome were located not far away from the crime scene, charging the aforementioned Tesla. So, yeah, charge your getaway car if it's electric.
well, so here's the thing. If you had a Tesla X, you'd have those gull-wing doors and you could put in a gas-powered generator that you could always tote with you. Just make sure you don't have that gasoline really exposed to you, but you can always pull that thing out, fire it up, and charge it. So I don't know.
Okay.
Just thought.
I'll remember that for the next time.
That's pretty good. I like the that kind of fits for you as an attorney. I know you're a mergers and acquisitions guy, but it's pretty good. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. Enjoy this beautiful day. It's finally warming up, so we go for a run and not have to have leggings on. So, or wear a Superman cape in case of Adam. All right, you guys have it. You guys have a great day. Thanks for joining us. See y'all. Bye-bye.